Hello and welcome to the Restless Gecko Reviews gaming channel. My aim is to focus on peripheral reviews, so that's keyboards, mice, IEMS, headphones, absolutely anything you can think of, amp decks, the lot. Just to give you an idea of what you might like, what your preference is. In terms of my mouse reviews, I'll be mainly focusing on the shape and I'll go into why very shortly. So I wanted to start the channel off with a brief view of where we're at with gaming peripherals in 2024. So if we take a look at the Wooting 68G, for example, Hall effect is now absolutely everywhere. You've got Razer doing their own iteration, you've got SteelSeries, you've got everyone trying to get in on the Hall effect craze, especially for like the likes of Valorant and less so CS pros are sort of stuck in their ways. There are a few adopters, but generally it's mostly Valorant, and obviously you've got like the joystick and everything like that, all those sorts of controls with it, but everybody's jumped on it because it is the premium technology. And now you've got the Viper V3 Pro coming out in terms of mice, and now that sensor of the previous generation is now open for everyone to use. So you've now got Vaxee releasing the XES wireless. That I believe is the previous gen sensor, which is new to them, new to everyone else, but not Razer. And I think should be, I mean, that'll be 8K capable, not native, but capable. But obviously Vaxee are a lot like Zowie in the way that they're very slow moving with these sorts of things until they can fully test them out, which understandable, because we have seen some shocking implementations. We're still waiting on the 8K implementation for the HTS plus 4K, but as soon as it's rocking the $33.99 and the battery life is absolutely useless, I don't think it'd be a good idea, but if they bring it out, it'll just be a nice gimmick for them to talk about. I mean, if you can feel the difference between 8K, 4K and 2K, then good on you. Personally, I can feel the difference between 1K and 4K. 8K is just, I mean, I'm using a 360Hz monitor and 8K just doesn't even touch the sides as far as I'm concerned. 4K I can feel, 2K, yeah, 1K is perfectly fine. And this is the thing now, is that every single mouse operates exactly the same. Obviously, there's a few differences in terms of the time it takes to register a click and latency, all these sorts of things, but it's so minimal that you're not even going to notice. I mean, there are pros playing on wired mice from 10 years ago that absolutely bend over anyone that goes up against them. And yeah, you might be rocking a Razer Viper V3 Pro, and you've got someone that's rocking, I don't know, absolutely a SteelSeries sensor, and they will destroy you. So in terms of the tech, I think it's mostly comes down to shape now. Like Rocket Jump Ninja says, he doesn't even bother mentioning the tech specs because they're all virtually the same. The only difference between them is the shape, and shape is absolutely king, especially going forwards. And it's both a bit of a boring time for peripherals, but it's also quite an exciting time, in that we're now going to, hopefully we'll see some iterations on some new shapes like the Zowie U2, very claw focused shape. Hopefully we'll see some more fingertip focused mice with a bit more of an intuitive look at it. Claw grip obviously is well catered for. Palm grip, again, some bigger mice, big light mice would be quite interesting to see. So yeah, this I think is definitely the way forwards. And in terms of the tech in itself, take for example Simple, obviously the GOAT of CSGO, and it remains to be seen whether he will be the GOAT of CS2, seeing as he's taken a bit of a break. Obviously he did his little stint with the Falcons, and rumours of a Saudi team building a team around him, but we'll see where that goes. But anyway, he is still currently using a GPX Superlight 1. He was involved in all of the leaks and everything with the GPX2, Superlight 2, sorry, and he's gone back to a Superlight 1, and I thought that was quite interesting. So what I decided to do was pick up a Superlight 1 just to see what I was missing. I sold my last one in favour of the Superlight 2, but I wanted to see what I was missing. There is a slight difference in the feel between the sensors, I did notice, but nothing major. And I believe from House's latency test, at 1K polling, I believe that the Gpro may beat out the Superlight 1 may beat out the Superlight 2. I would imagine that's mainly because this is probably focused around 1K, whereas this was focused around 2K when it was in production, and obviously now it's got the 4K. But yeah, I mean, it's such a solid mouse, and if you like the shape and you love the shape, it's hard to say that there's a reason to go up to the GPX2 unless you really like the optical clicks. I mean, the skate design is just, I don't know what they were doing there, just to force people to buy new aftermarket. I'll keep the same ones. The stock feet, which were absolutely atrocious, and I had to change them. I was not sticking with those. Anyway, yeah, so I just wanted to go back for a bit of nostalgia, so I purchased the red one in the style of simple. And yeah, it's hard to explain, but it does feel slightly more analog, which is a really weird description of it. Obviously, the mouse wheel's not as light, it's a bit more textured, a bit more clicky, a lot smoother on the GPX2. But there's something about it that just feels more locked in. I don't know what I can't. It's very hard to explain, but it's something about it. It might be completely placebo, but obviously most of our high aim lab scores come from placebo results anyway, with new shapes, new mice. But yeah, I just wanted to understand, and I wanted to look into why simple of all people. Obviously, the excuse is, oh, he only uses the Gpro Superlight because he's under contract with Logitech and they're a sponsor. Yeah, which is absolutely true. But why would he pick the GPX Superlight 1 over the Superlight 2? My thoughts are, it's either the red colorway, he doesn't like the optical switches, he prefers the mechanical, or he's just so used to the one that he's got, he doesn't really want to move off it, which you wouldn't really think is too much of a problem. But I just found that fascinating, so I decided to come back to it. And to be honest with you, playing with it, I get the same results. It's the same shape. Absolutely everything is exactly the same. Which stands to reason that the tech at the moment isn't making that much of a difference. I mean, it's nice to get when you get a new mouse and you know you've got the top of the line. Everything's perfect. It's future-proof as far as you're aware, and nothing's going to change. It will change, obviously, but for the time being, you're at the top of the pile. But I think, yeah, going forward, shape is absolutely key, and that's one of the things I'm most interested in. So I've been playing for about a year now, a year and a half. I switched from console to the master race, and I found mice really interesting because they're kind of like guitars. If anybody plays guitars, they're kind of like guitars. You can play a different song with a different guitar. It's just some guitars have songs in them, and some mice just have a different feel to them that you can sort of bring out of them. So for example, let's take the MP-01. So the MP-01 obviously has this curve at the back that just sort of pushes into your palm, and it forces you to sort of grip around it, and it sort of really, really locks you in. But it hasn't really got much of a side, so that the skirt here, it's sort of, you can't really put your fingers to the front for a sort of aggressive claw. You've kind of got to relax them a little bit. So for me, this mouse is good for Valorant if I'm feeling a bit twitchy. So what it does is it locks my wrist in place, and it means that horizontal movements are really, really smooth. Vertical are a little bit more tricky, but obviously verticality isn't as much of an importance as it is in, for example, like Apex Legends or the finals or something like that. And it's really good for tracking. Obviously, Vaxee skates are just ridiculously good out of the box. Never needed to change them. It's just a really, really good mouse, but it's the shape that forces me into a specific style of playing, where it makes me more horizontal than I am vertical. And it's the same with the U2 as well. So the U2 forces me into a very aggressive claw, and I do find that vertical movements are a little bit more tricky. But then if we move over to, let's take for example, the Atlantis Mini. So the Atlantis Mini, again, is another aggressive claw, but because it has these skirts on the side, which, I don't know, they're not quite as severe, are they? They're very similar, but I would say that the U2 is slightly more severe on the sides. But I find with this, I think maybe it's the low button height, but it allows me to just sort of, and it's small form factor as well. I mean, if you look at the difference in the sizes, significantly smaller. It gives me that back palm area where I can move the mouse around a little bit more, which helps with verticality. But because it doesn't lock my wrist in place, horizontal movements are a little bit more woolly, is how I would describe it. But I find that this mouse is really good for flicking, because it forces my fingers down onto the mouse pad, because obviously there's not much mouse, which is really good for tracking where I am at the time, where I'm going, the speed that I'm moving at, and it just allows me just a little bit more contact with the pad just to correct my aim. And then moving on from that, you've got the HTS Plus. So the HTS Plus is a higher hump, I believe, than, well, it's got more of a back end hump, and it's slightly higher than the Superlight. This is a great mouse for something that's in between the Superlight. I find tracking really easy with the Superlight because it lifts my hand, more so, my fingers, off of the mouse pad, and it just allows me to just graze along the mouse pad. The HTS does exactly the same, but it also has that room at the back to allow me to move up and down. It has that in-hand maneuverability that the Gpro doesn't have unless you've got huge farmer-sized hands. So I find that depending on how I'm playing, how shaky I am, how shaky my aim is, if I've not played for a while, I'll switch between the different mice. And they'll all give me something different, and they're kind of like a solution to a problem, is the way that I look at mice. I do think that for tracking purposes, bigger mice I tend to find better. For flicking, things like Valorant, smaller mice, again, depending on how I feel on the day. There's got the Maya there. The Viper V3 Pro, I don't know whether I prefer it more than the Gpro or the Superlight, only because I don't know what it is about it, but it's more claw focused than palm, and I feel like I'm somewhere in between at times, depending on the mouse that I'm using. So for a bigger mouse, I'm sort of a palm claw hybrid, and then for these smaller mice, I just go straight into an aggressive claw. So it's kind of like in limbo for me in my grip style, but I do think it's a very, very good mouse. The tech is second to none. It's very comfortable to use. Everything is very thoughtfully laid out. The side buttons are ridiculously good. It's just, yeah. But again, it's tools for different jobs, and that's what I believe these mice are. So at the moment, I'm currently maining the GPX Pro Superlight 1, just because, yeah, nostalgia bait. Yeah, and that's where I'm up to at the moment. So if you'd like to see any reviews of any of these mice I have on the table, I've got multiple mouse pads, the Freefall SV. I was looking at doing a review on the G640, just a bit of a retrospective. Does it still hold up? If you let me know in the comments below, I'll absolutely record one of those for you, give you my thoughts and my ideas. And I will be interspersing some gameplay footage as time goes by. Yeah. So thank you for watching. If you like to subscribe. If you don't. If you want to give me a like, go for it. It would be greatly appreciated. But thank you very much for watching.